My guest today is Kerry-Ann Powell with Trafalgar Strategies, and she kind of does it all in the business space, in the leadership space. She leads workshops, she teaches and trains. She's a frequent guest on podcasts. She's a strategist when it comes to business. True entrepreneur. And I can always tell when people are in my tribe, when we just the entrepreneurial bug. And she is a champion of small and medium-sized businesses. I can't wait to introduce her to you and let her tell you all about who she is and what she does. So without further ado, let's bring Kerry-Ann up. Kerry-Ann, how are you?
Jay, my man, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited for this episode because
Me
your
too.
smile and your demeanor and personality are like infectious. I love it.
Thanks, Jay. I'm really happy to be here and have this chat with you.
Cool. Well, let's get started then. Tell us more about you and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know how sometimes when people are running small businesses, they sometimes feel like they're managing sort of this chaotic tornado?
Mm.
Well, what I do and what my team does is we help small and medium-sized business owners run their companies more smoothly, primarily through strategic consulting and also executive coaching.
Love that. Strategic consulting and executive
Mhm.
consulting. Are there any, well, maybe I'll just ask you this in the next question then. So those might be, do you have some main product packages, and also I know you said small and medium sized businesses, but do you have a niche? Are there certain businesses that you work better with than others?
Yeah, absolutely. The majority of my business, my clients own service-based companies. So anywhere from professional services, accounting, lawyers, those types of folks, or sort of companies that do consulting for, any sorts of business to business consulting primarily, or even some consumer services as well. So primarily in the service-based industries.
Okay, awesome. And I love that too, because it's right up my alley. I mean, we do our specialty is working with, B2C service based or even
Yeah,
retail product based businesses in the local community. So I
yeah.
get, I'm telling you, we are among the same tribe, Carrie, and
We are
that's
simpatico, Jay, I'm telling you.
absolutely, absolutely. So when you say, when you talk about the consulting and the strategies that you do, are there some main products? Can you go into depth a little bit about some of those products and maybe some
Yeah,
examples of what you do?
absolutely, Jay. So for the most part, so normally there are four main problems that customers usually come to me for, or when they finally realize they need some help. Usually they're having a hard time scaling,
Mm.
or they're wearing way too many hats, the owners are, and so they're feeling like they can't step away without feeling like the business is going to implode. Um, or they really have a cash problem. There's some, lack of revenue coming in, cash flow is a problem. And the last one is usually when they're having a difficult time building their team. They built the team when it was early days, and somehow right now it's not working, or they didn't really have a structure in place before they started hiring. And so they kind of have a team that's kind of a hodgepodge and need to sort of go through and clean it up. So those are the four main real reasons why people come to me. Obviously, there could be more. And so what I do primarily is just sort of first we assess what's going on in the business, because those four things I like to call them sort of like symptoms of chaos, but they're not actually usually the problem, right? There's usually underlying problems. So what I usually do is assess what's going on. Then from that point, so I can understand a bit more about what the real problem is. From that point, then we, create an execution plan, and then we stay with the business for a full year to be able to help them implement what it is that we have recommended one must do to execute. So that might be many, many different things, but for one thing, we definitely do a strong amount of strategic planning. We go in, we help the company do some future forecasting, them and their leadership team to sort of, okay, what does a company need to look like moving forward, creating some values, goals, missions, those kind of thing, and making sure that they are connecting those strategic objectives with the things that they're doing on a day-to-day basis. Because Jay, I can't tell you how many times people have a strategic objective and it's like, great strategic plan, it's in somebody's folder somewhere in someone's office, but then no one knows how it's connected on a day-to-day for the activities they're doing. So we'll do a lot of work with owners to sort of connect their strategic objectives with what's happening in the day to day, making sure they have standard operating procedures in place, making sure the teams are people are sitting in the right seats, and moving from that place.
I love that. So do you have like dashboards or scorecards that you use to keep them on track?
Yes, absolutely. We use a number of different ways in which we keep people like accountable for the execution of what it is they've agreed they want to do. And so as we have our weekly or bi-weekly conversations, we kind of say, okay, so this is sort of where you're at, these are the numbers we're looking at. It doesn't look like you've sort of hit those numbers. What's going on? And then because usually, it's never really about the numbers themselves. It's what's happening, why the numbers aren't being hit or the goals aren't being met. And so that's really where the sausage is made. Once you sort of do an audit, then you do an execution plan, and then it's when they start putting, what is it? Nothing, no plan really survives once it hits the enemy. It's once they start executing is that's when you begin to see, okay, here's where the strongholds are. So then we can really work them through it and get them in. And I have to say, you'd be surprised. Some businesses have come to us and we're like, can we even help you here? Because it's kind of a big thing. But in the end, they get to it because once you can see what the end can look like, it motivates you.
That's really true. Wow, that was really good. I love that
Yeah.
you put it that way. We use marketing scorecards with our clients, right? Because we work as a fractional CMO in a lot of cases, but we also
Yeah.
have the agency and we help a lot of businesses implement their marketing plan. But you said something there, about things just collecting dust. Like, right, some businesses are like, oh, I have to document all my processes. I have to, do this and then they do it and then it just sits in a Word document that they never open. Nobody ever looks at it. When the next person comes on to onboard, they forget they even have it, and then they're just teaching somebody what's already been, so to bring that out and to make sure that people are utilizing and implementing what they're doing, I think is huge. And there is definitely a massive need for you in the world. There's no doubt about it, right? I mean, there's businesses all over the place. I mean, I was one of them for 8 years,
Yeah.
right? I didn't start getting all this stuff I still don't have it figured out. And I don't think I ever truly will, but it, uh, I was one of those businesses for the first 8 years. I had nothing to help onboard somebody, train
Yeah.
somebody,
Yeah.
measure
Yeah.
success, so I have a ticker at the bottom of the screen. We've got a bunch more questions to ask you, but if anybody wants to reach you, they should go to nobusinesschaos.com. I think that domain name is incredible. Nobusinesschaos.com is just awesome. It says it exactly, right?
I mean, chaos is the enemy for business, and it's like we don't want any of it.
Yeah, stay away. I think that's a really cool. That's a really unique domain name that I think will stick. I love that. So yeah, if anybody wants to reach out to Kerry-Ann, if you're sitting in your business and you're like, oh, I want to scale, but I am so in the muck of everything, like, then I think you should probably go to that website today.
Yeah.
So all right, so how long have you been in business, first of all?
Well, I went full time 2014.
Perfect.
I'd opened the business doing different versions or iterations of what it is I currently do before then, but I was always still sort of working full time. And then I went full time into it in 2014, and it's just been off to the races since then.
Love it. Love that.
Yeah.
My story with the full time and moving from side hustle to full time was 2015. So I'm right
Yeah.
there with you.
Yeah, we're right
Um,
there. Yeah.
yeah. The reason I asked that question, right, is because as you are coming up on many
Don't age me
years.
now, Jay. Don't tell.
No, I'm saying your business is,
I know.
full time,
Hmm.
9 years, right? And
Hmm.
you've been doing it a lot longer. Uh, you've got to be doing something right. And I don't doubt that you're doing a lot of things right because you can't stay in business that long if you're not doing it right. So there's probably some somebody has given you a testimonial or you've had a win for a client that if somebody asks you, give me a win or a testimonial that you had, it's the first thing that comes to mind. What would that be?
I often think about my client, Minata. She owns a gaming company, and during the particular when things went bad, when the pandemic first happened, and companies were um, governments were trying to figure out how to manage it. And so her company is based in Europe, has offices in South America as well in Africa, but there's some regulations around the company that she has, and so there it basically was going to impact literally the primary way in which they earn revenue in the company.
Mm.
And I mean, I'll never forget, because we were sitting, and the first day when everything really shut down, and she was like, Kerry-Ann, this is going to ruin my business. I may have to let the team go. And we sat in that moment because it had some gravity to it, so we weren't going to just like minimize it. And then we're like, yeah, no, so we're not. We're not going to let the team go. We're not closing this business down. And we worked together, and she is the hero. And I always say this all the time: the owners of the businesses are the heroes in every way, shape, or form, because everyone sees the highs, yeah, but they never
Mhm.
really see the lows. So she buckled down, and there were a lot of strategies that we put into place for her to be able to pivot, to be able to get her team to sort of pivot as well, to keep them bolstered in their morale. And by the time we were finished working together, she had doubled revenue in the business. She had been able to implement a performance-based bonus system in the company, because before then it was more, like every, annual bonuses. But she was able to implement a performance-based bonus system in the company, which of course increased morale.
Mm.
And thirdly, her company was voted in one of the top 15 companies to work for in her industry, in a time when many of her competitors literally permanently closed. And
Wow.
whenever I speak about this, it's not about, oh, look what I did. It's about, here's what, if you have strong strategy, strong leadership, put into place the things that you can put into place in your company, you can really have a thriving small and medium sized company. It's not rocket science, but it requires a certain amount of, reason for living kind of thing. And for
Mm.
her, it was, she didn't want to have anybody in her team have to lose their job. And there you go.
That's a huge win.
Yeah.
And I think you said a few things in there, like, what's her why? She realized her why, right? And
Yeah.
to be able to, I like that you sat down and you let the gravity of the moment sink in when it
Yeah.
seemed like it was, doomsday. And
Yep.
then you just said, no, that doesn't fly here, right? We're
Yeah.
not going to let that happen. So
Yeah.
I love that. And I think it sounds like really, you know, you're you turn into like a counselor at that point, right? Like you're a listening ear, you're an advisor, you're really there just to
Yeah.
boost her up, to pick people up when they're down.
Yeah. Because really, of a truth, let's be honest. I mean, you know, business owners are savvy. They
Mhm.
know they know their product way more than I do. They know their service way more than I do. They know their market way more than I do. However, entrepreneurs are, I am one too. So that's why I have someone that's he got my back as well, right? We're
Yep.
kind of like doing this thing, and we're all over the place, right? But in the end, though, if you have a strong strategy, and you are operating in full leadership mode, meaning you're leading yourself, you're leading your team, you're leading your organization, and on the other side of that, have a strong team between that, then you can really make things happen. So entrepreneurs are savvy, business owners know what they're doing, but sometimes we need to have a space where we can pause and say, because it's like, fish cannot see water. Fish cannot see water. You can't see your own water. So even
Mm.
though you have everything you know about your business, and you're smart, you're savvy, and you know what you're doing, we all need someone who can see the water for us and be like, yeah, so that strategy isn't going to get you where you want it to be. Let's tweak some things, let's shift some things, let's do some things to get you where you actually want to be. And then once you're moving, you're cooking with mustard, as my old boss used to say.
That's an interesting term. Fish can't see water
Yeah.
is the most like brilliant way to put something like that. I've never heard that before, and I mean, like my mind was going like as I heard you say that, and it made me think of you know businesses are the first ones to go out and tell you all the great things that are happening and all the great things they're doing and how successful they are. But I think what marks a true winning business is that business owner has a place they can go and be vulnerable, be open,
Yeah.
have somebody to talk to, because things are not always peachy. Things are down. We get scared. We're fearful all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough that I have several groups that I'm a part of that help
Yeah.
me. Like I can be vulnerable in.
Yeah.
Um, and if I didn't, or I went through with such a big ego that I thought, those, I don't have any problems, I probably wouldn't have made it as long as I have. So do you think that just being someone that they can trust and be vulnerable with is a key part of what you do?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why, I call myself a champion of small and mid-sized businesses, because in the end, if you can create a space where people can be like, okay, here's the real deal. Let me open the hood so you can see the mess that's underneath here, right?
Yep.
Then you really know you can get in there and say, okay, this is going well over here. So kudos over here. We need to go ahead and do some work, and
Yep.
here it's okay, but we got to fix, because then you build a stronger business. Because in the end, Jay, yeah, okay, when you first start a business, it's a little bit about you, because you're like, oh, I have a great idea, there's something I want to bring to the world, blah, blah, blah. But when you are getting into being a seasoned owner of a business, it is so not about you. It is like you are the least important person in that, because now you have employees who have families. You have vendors who have partnership with you. You've got, you now are committed to your community in ways that you weren't before. So there are different ways in which you then need to show up, and not just in the present, but what kind of business do you want to build? What kind of legacy do you want to leave? And
Mm.
so, yeah, you could build a rough shot something or another and keep it going, and then when you're finished, it's done. That's one way to go about doing it. Or you can say, what kind of business do I want to leave behind? And making sure that you're building it as an entity outside of yourself, so that when it's time for you to say goodbye or you want to move on, you can sell it, you can give it, you can pass it on, and something's an entity that exists outside of you. Therefore, you're just the I don't know, you're the cultivator of it. You've created it, you cultivate it, and it exists, but now it grows beyond itself. Every large company that we see and we respect out there in the world was once a small business.
Right.
And as a result, you can see where some of the cracks were, because now they're bigger, things are problematic, or you can see the ones that built it well and they still last.
It's, if you are the business, you really don't have a business. You're
Yep.
you're a freelancer, or
You got a
you're a glorified
job, Jay.
freelancer, or
You got a
yeah.
job.
Yeah. So I love that. It's one of the struggles that I often think about is like my transition, and I'm still in the middle of this transition
Mhm.
from, glorified freelancer to a CEO, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
trying to make that move. So that's been my journey for the last couple
Yeah.
of years, is how do I not be my business? How does my business, run successfully if I took a week or a month or 6 months off, right? And
Right.
I'm at the week part. I've got it that far. I can take a week off. But
I
but
can't
yeah,
tell you how many
absolutely.
people can't.
No, I know, it's amazing. It's
Mhm.
amazing. I know a lot of colleagues can't. All right, got a couple more questions for you. I love this one. Pat myself on the back, not really. But I call it earned it, learned it, improved your authority. So how did you get to where you're at, either through education, titles, certifications? Just talk about some of your background and how you got to your qualifications to be doing what you do.
Yeah, well, you know, I guess I kind of learned it as I went along. So my background is I'm an attorney and a fundraiser. So I was a Washington D.C. attorney for a long time and a lobbyist, and was an original fundraiser before I went to law school. So when I went to DC, I did all of those things, and towards the end of the latter, before I started my business, I was in charge of raising and being the chief fundraiser for a very large international project. So once I during that process, there was a great deal of pressure, and I needed to run a team, a smallish size team, to be able to then raise over $120 million. So while I was doing that, there were some things that I really had to learn real fast, real quick, and in a hurry, because
Mm-hmm.
money waits for no man. So you so during that time, I think that's when I really cemented the skills that I developed during that particular period of time. And also, I was simultaneously doing my own work. So coming out of law school, stopping and going straight into a very prestigious fellowship coming out of law school, I really sort of began to have an emotional, like I hit an emotional wall at some point, like, why am I here? Like existential moment, because I'd been like hustling for most of my young adult life, and I was living a life, or at least trying to achieve certain goals that I thought I needed to achieve based on, societal expectations, family of origin, all that kind of stuff. So I started doing my own personal development work, and I began really becoming more aligned with who I was. So during that time, while I was, working in Washington, D.C., other professional women would say, "Hey, Kerry-Ann, can you, run a workshop on this, or come and do this, or talk on this?" And so I started doing sort of like retreats for leaders around how to be more aligned, and those types of topics. And so simultaneously, I'm meeting all of these, folks who are in corporate, who are leaders, in various different capacities, and realizing that there is this sort of this sort of strategy work that must take place in order to achieve any big thing. And how you need to be able to bring the strategy down to the very littlest, smallest detail of what an independent contributor in your organization is doing. And at the same time, this sort of alignment piece, that if you don't have this, all of this doesn't work. So when I began to develop those two sort of skill sets, I realized there's a significant need in out there in the marketplace for folks to be able to learn this, to see it, to be able to know both the strategy and the alignment part, so that organizations can be more effective. So I would say I learned through my own, experiences, and developed that. And then when I went into business, of course, you learn some more there too.
Totally. And I ask that question every episode because the recurring pattern is among business owners. It didn't really have to do with what they went to school for or what their degree was. Everybody kind of, we make it up as we go along. We learn it, we figure it out, we make a lot of mistakes. I think, I often say, I school of hard knocks, right?
Yeah,
I fall down, I get up, I fall down, I get up, I fall down, I get up. And each
yeah,
time I get up, I'm smarter than I was before I fell down. Right. So
exactly.
yeah. So no, kudos. I think that's amazing that you've just adapted and figured it out and have gotten really good at what you do just from life experience. And I love that.
Yeah,
So, all right, I got two more questions for you.
yeah.
First one, I'll tone it down a little bit here. Personally, professionally, tell me something you're thankful for.
Oh, wow. Gratitude. I have to say that I am so grateful for my family. It is I've got a beautiful representation of what love was from my mom and my dad, and what family is from, my sister, my brother, and my cousins. I grew up with a lot of cousins. And now I'm at a stage where I'm watching my nieces. I've got 5 nieces, and I'm watching them go through the stages of life that I remember, the levels of, like, who am I? Who am I in the world? How do I want to show up? And watching them go through these moments and this stage has been. I just feel so grateful to be able to observe it from this side of life, and to be able to journey with them when they're like, you know, Auntie Kerry-Ann, I don't know what this is about. I'm like, yeah, don't worry, none of us do. But I'm grateful for my family. They bring me so much joy, so much love, and it's beautiful to kind of see how, um, what you sow into others, you see multiplied. So what my grandparents sowed into my parents, who sowed into me, who sowed into my nieces, it's just sort of, you kind of see you know, I don't know what the word is, but the harvest of it. So yeah.
That's a good analogy. The harvest is a good term for that. And I love it. I love when people say family. That's like my favorite answer to that question. It's okay. I mean, a lot of people could say, I mean, there should be lots of things that we're grateful for, but that number one thing is exactly the root of that question. And I'm glad you got right to it. So, all right, I've got one more. I can't believe our time is already. I can't believe it's been almost 29 minutes already. That's
I
crazy.
know, Jay. Wow, we could keep talking all day.
Well, don't rush through the answer, because I set an expectation of about 30 minutes. Don't rush through the answer. We're not
talk it through.
Yeah, right. But every business has FAQs, right? There are things that people, you hear this question over and over and over again from every prospect or lead or potential customer you work with. Either questions that they're always asking, or objections that you feel like you're constantly overcoming. On video, I want you to figure out what one of those big questions is. Let's answer it on video, so that when you take the snippet of this video, you can put it on your website and have an answer to an FAQ. So go for it.
Yeah, I think the one that I hear mostly is, um, well, I know my business better than you know my business. So why can't I fix it myself? And what I often say, this goes back to the fish don't see water, can't see water thing. But on a more practical way, what I've noticed, what happens with people who try that route, is that they're actually solving for those 4 symptoms of chaos that I talked about earlier. So they think, oh, I'm having a hard time, scaling, or I'm having a difficult time with revenue. So they think, oh, I need to, get better sales processes, or I need to get more leads, or I need to do this. Where what could be happening is that your product is not actually a good product, or your market doesn't need your product to the capacity that it can support an entire business. So there are sort of what I call 8 fundamental things that a small and medium-sized business must have in order for it to kind of thrive. And so when I'm auditing what the problem is in a business, I'm going through it based on these 8 components. And I'm looking at each of those things. And usually none of those 8 things are usually the reasons why, or if they're lacking, or if they're not strong enough, why you may be having a problem in the business. So while someone they know their business left, right, and center, and they probably say, well, I know what the problem is, let me fix it this way. You may be fixing something that's not actually the true problem. Therefore, you're spending a year investing in things that you may not necessarily need to invest in, fixing a problem that actually the real root cause is another problem. You've wasted time, you've wasted money. And the real issue is, Jay, I'm going to be honest. Sometimes people come to me and they are so frustrated with the business that they are considering closing down because they're just that frustrated.
Mm.
So it's like, well, you not only waste time, waste money, waste energy, but you also waste the love and spark you have for your business, because the more and more it frustrates you, the more you're thinking, well, maybe it's me, maybe I'm not cut out for this, maybe this isn't, a good idea, when really the truth, it may be just a little tweak on an issue that I can help you do real fast, real quick, whereas you're spending a year, 2 years, 3 years tinkering on something that is never going to fix it.
Sure. No, I thought the first thing that came to my mind was, look, Tiger Woods is a way better golfer than his coach, but he has a coach, right? Who can see things that he can't see while he's busy swinging. The coach can look at him and see what is going on in the swing, right? So it's
Exactly.
that, and that was the thing. And then
Yeah.
again, the fish can't see water. I think that's, if there's one big takeaway from this episode, I'm going to be thinking of fish can't see water for sure. It's so good. So,
Yeah.
look, Kerry-Ann, this has been a pleasure. I am so glad you came on the show today. I'm so grateful to have had you now as a guest, and now as a collaborator, or maybe in the future on things. And
Yeah.
any final last words or anything?
It's been absolutely a blast to be here, Jay, and have a conversation with you and talk to your audience. And, like I said, I think small, medium-sized businesses, we run the world. 99% of businesses are small and medium-sized. Two-thirds of the population are employed by small businesses. We need to hold our head up, walk a little bit stronger and taller, recognize, look, we've got this. All you got to do is just, keep it going.
Love it. Kerry-Ann, thank you so much again for being a guest. Look, if you're, again, one more thing, if you want to learn more or meet Kerry-Ann, talk to her, head over to nobusinesschaos.com. Kerry-Ann, thank you so much. I hope
You're
you have a
welcome, Jay.
wonderful day, and we'll talk soon.
You do the same. Take care.
Take care. That was incredible. I hope Kerry-Ann will stick around backstage for a minute while I wrap up this episode. But look, there's so much to learn about that. And if you are in business, like I'm a marketing person and Kerry-Ann is a business strategist and growth strategist, there are so many people that can help you and can see things. I mean, sometimes people look at me and they're like, Jay, why are you doing it this way? And I'm like, because that's the way it's done. And they're like, well, have you thought about this? Right. So perspectives change, and you have to be willing to hear it. You have to be willing to listen, right?